Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take complex, often revolutionary source material articles, internal memos, strategic white papers, and we really distill them into the most potent nuggets of insight.
And for you, the listener, this is your shortcut to not just understanding the news, but really understanding the tectonic shifts that are happening right underneath it.
And today, we're diving into a monumental shift. I mean, this is one that genuinely redefines education on a global scale.
It really is. We're looking at that precise moment where artificial intelligence, it stopped being a classroom accessory.
A fun little tool.
Exactly. And it became the foundational operating system of an entire nation's learning environment. I mean, this isn't just incremental progress. It's a paradigm rupture.
Absolutely. We are dissecting El Salvador's landmark Grok for Education partnership with Elon Musk's XAI.
Right.
And when you hear AI in schools, you usually think of a small pilot program, maybe a resource for teachers to play with. This is completely different.
It's a whole other category.
We're talking about a small Central American nation attempting the world's first systemic national-scale AI-native school system. I mean, they are actively trying to leapfrog generations of educational technology in one single, incredibly bold move.
And our mission today really is to get past the headlines and truly understand the magnitude of this gamble. We have to unpack the political boldness of President Nayib Bukele, for sure, but also the technical complexity. I mean, the sheer challenge of deploying a frontier AI to over 1 million children all at once.
And then critically, we have to contrast it. We have to look at this radical unified strategy and put it up against the more decentralized or cautious or even strategically focused approaches being taken by global leaders.
Yeah, places like Estonia, China, Singapore, and of course the United States.
This deep dive really centers on a system that's designed to reach, potentially 1.3 million students?
That's the upper end, yeah, across more than 5,000 public schools. And that scale, it just demands a complete systemic redesign. It's not an add-on.
It forces you to wrestle with these huge, almost uncomfortable questions. Like, what is the role, the true purpose of a human teacher when an AI can provide infinite patience and, perfect personalization?
And what does true, equitable, personalized education even look like when you apply it at a national scale? I mean, instantly shrinking the resource gap between the best-funded schools and the worst-funded schools.
The underlying tension of this whole conversation, I think, is whether intelligence, which has always been a scarce, expensive resource, can it truly become an abundant public utility?
Accessible to every child, yeah.
Right.
Regardless of their economic background or where they live.
Because that transition, if they can pull it off, it fundamentally changes the social contract of education.
It changes everything.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with arguably the biggest bet in modern education history.
I think that's fair to say.
So the moment we really need to laser focus on, it's a specific date. It's December 11th, 2025. All our source materials point to this day as the civilizational signal, the point where AI officially became infrastructure.
Right. And the details of the Grok for Education Initiative partnership. I mean, on paper, it's a formal collaboration between XAI and the government of El Salvador.
Simple enough.
But the premise, while simple, is revolutionary. Deploying Grok, XAI's large language model, not as some optional study tool.
Not like a glorified search engine?
Not at all. It's a personalized, and this is the key word, mandatory AI tutor. It's embedded within the curriculum for every single public school student across the entire nation.
The scale is the first thing that just makes you sit up and pay attention. It's not a university program. It's not some pilot in the capital city.
Yeah. The initiative targets, like you said, north of 1 million children. The potential is up to 1.3 million. And that's across the nation's entire public school infrastructure, over 5,000 schools.
So this is a full-scale deployment from day one.
Absolutely. The sources really stress this. This is a systemic redesign, and it's intended to span everything, from the most connected urban centers with fiber optic internet to the most remote, under-resourced rural communities up in the mountains.
And the plan itself. It's not a set it and forget it kind of thing, is it?
No, it's an intense 2-year national rollout. And they've built continuous, iterative refinement right into the contract itself. It's like an educational big bang, not a slow, gradual evolution.
And the political positioning from President Bukele is absolutely critical here. He didn't frame this as some boring bureaucratic reform.
Not a chance. He placed it squarely in this context of frontier governance.
Frontier governance.
Yeah, he linked it directly to the nation's previous big, bold move with Bitcoin adoption.
So he's building a brand for the country.
That framing is deeply strategic. Bukele is positioning El Salvador as a global testbed. He's on record saying things like, El Salvador doesn't just wait for the future to happen, we build it. We pioneer AI-driven education.
And that's a signal to international investors, to tech companies.
To everyone. The move is designed to attract attention and investment. The subtext is that smaller, nimbler nations can bypass all the developmental hurdles that bog down larger states.
Right, they can move faster. And Musk's emphasis was similar, wasn't it? He focused on the sheer scale of access.
He did. His line was about putting the most advanced AI directly in the hands of an entire generation. And the analysis we're looking at labels this as an attempt at educational leapfrogging.
Can you just unpack that term for a second? What does educational leapfrogging look like in practice?
It means skipping all the intermediate stages entirely. So instead of spending decades slowly building up physical infrastructure, training thousands of specialized edtech developers, gradually introducing tools into the classroom.
The way the US or the EU would have to do it.
Yeah.
With all the committees and pilot programs.
Exactly. They jump straight to an AI native model. They're using their centralized political will and a relatively small national footprint to achieve a kind of velocity that is just impossible in larger, more complex federated systems.
That makes a lot of sense. They're leveraging their size as a strategic advantage for speed and for unified policy.
Okay.
But this isn't just about them importing a foreign tool, right? The agreement details a lot of co-development.
That's a crucial point. They are co-authoring the education ecosystem. Grok isn't just being delivered as a finished product off the shelf.
It's not a shrink-wrapped piece of software.
No, it's a flexible platform that's being tailored by local Salvadoran educators and ex-AI engineers working together. The collaboration focuses on 4 pillars that are just essential for success.
Okay, what are they?
First, developing new teaching methodologies that are actually suitable for an AI-driven classroom. Second, creating locally relevant data sets to make sure Grok understands the specific cultural and linguistic nuances of El Salvador.
That's huge.
It's everything. Third is establishing ethical and responsible AI frameworks, especially for minors. And fourth, developing integration models that firmly keep humans in the loop.
Okay, I want to pause on that human in the loop part, especially when we're talking about data. We're talking about collecting learning trajectories on millions of children. This is national intelligence, as they call it. Who really owns and controls that educational data?
And that is the highest stakes question in the entire initiative. The source materials acknowledge the sensitivity right out of the gate. The agreement aims for shared oversight, but ultimately, that data...
Which includes what? Common mistakes students make where they get stuck.
Exactly. Cognitive bottlenecks, engagement patterns... All of it is labeled by the government as national educational intelligence.
When for XAI, it's what? Performance data to make their models better.
Right. But for El Salvador, it's a strategic national asset. It's like having an MRI-level scan of the cognitive health of your entire youth population. So the ethical frameworks, the data sovereignty rules, they have to be ironclad to manage that risk.
Let's look at the core function then. Grok, as this national-scale personalized tutor. The experts in our sources say it aims to compress inequality of attention. I want to spend a lot of time on this concept because it feels like it addresses the single greatest inequity in all of education.
It absolutely does. And inequality of attention is a really simple concept at its core. Wealthy students get private tutors, they get small class sizes. Poor students are often in these massive classrooms where the teacher's attention is just dangerously diluted. Grok's promise is to provide the benefit of a private tutor to every single child, regardless of their family's income.
So how does it actually manage that kind of individualized, scalable attention?
It's continuously adapting the learning experience in real time. So if you're a student who is excelling, Grok doesn't just give you the next lesson on the list. It accelerates the content, it deepens the complexity, it offers advanced sort of peripheral topics to satisfy your curiosity.
And the opposite is true for a student who's struggling.
Exactly. If you're struggling with, let's say, the concept of supply and demand and economics, Grok slows right down. It changes the metaphors. Maybe it explains it through the context of the local produce markets instead of abstract economic charts.
So it makes it relevant to their world.
And it revisits the fundamentals over and over until mastery is confirmed. It literally acts like that infinitely patient human tutor that we all wish every child could have access to.
That dramatically alters the role of the human teacher, doesn't it? If the AI is handling all the personalized explanations and the repetitive drill work, What's left for the human to do?
And the sources are incredibly emphatic about this. The teacher is augmented, not replaced. This is the crucial design principle that the whole thing rests on.
So teachers are elevated.
Elevated to become curriculum orchestrators, mentors, emotional anchors, and social and ethical guides. Grok absorbs all the repetitive, computationally heavy tasks, the instant feedback, the practice drills, the dynamic adaptation of the material.
So the teacher is freed up to focus on what the AI can't do. The higher order instruction, guiding creativity, orchestrating group discussion, providing that human development piece.
That's the idea.
But I do have a question here. If Grok is handling 80% of the routine explanation, are we risking the de-skilling of the next generation of teachers, making them overly reliant on AI-generated lessons?
It's a legitimate concern, and the sources do address it by emphasizing the rigor of the teacher training pipeline. The goal isn't reliance, it's proficiency in a whole new model of teaching.
So the teacher has to become an expert in interpreting the AI's data.
Exactly. They have to use that insight to inform their human interaction. They're not just, pushing a button on the tool. They're leveraging its insights. If a teacher sees that 40% of their class misunderstood one concept in a very specific way, the AI flags that pattern.
Which allows the human teacher to design a really precise, high-impact intervention or a group discussion around that exact problem.
Precisely.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. AI as a force multiplier. This is particularly transformative in nations like El Salvador, where student-to-teacher ratios can be painfully thin.
Oh, absolutely.
You're essentially multiplying a scarce human resource, the high-quality teacher, across a massive population.
It's a load balancing strategy, and it has massive equity implications. By offloading all those mechanical tasks to the machine, the human judgment remains central, but the scale of personalized education instantly leaps up.
And this potential to improve the quality of teaching for every single child, regardless of their school's physical resources, is why this initiative is being seen as a kind of blueprint for the Global South.
Without a doubt.
We mentioned the risks earlier: data privacy, cultural bias, dependency. Beyond the huge data sovereignty issue, how do they plan to manage cultural bias in a model that was trained primarily in, English-speaking data centers?
The co-development process is specifically designed to tackle that head-on. They are building locally relevant datasets, and they're fine-tuning the model to understand Salvadoran Spanish, local history, and cultural norms.
So this localized training is mandatory.
It's non-negotiable. It's to ensure that Grok's analogies and examples actually resonate and don't just introduce foreign cultural assumptions. If Grok is explaining democracy, it needs to draw on local civic examples, not just the American Revolution.
So the risks aren't being ignored. They're being actively managed as, necessary components of a successful implementation.
That's the big takeaway. The source material views these challenges, privacy, bias, dependency, as signals of seriousness. They are mandatory hurdles that must be cleared to operate a system affecting millions of children ethically.
The very fact that they have to co-author the ethical rulebook for this technology really highlights how unprecedented this deployment is.
It signifies a profound shift. If intelligent instruction can be scaled instantly and personalized infinitely, then a nation's educational system stops being a structural bottleneck and it becomes a national accelerator.
It's an incredible ambition. But to really understand how complex this is, we need to move from the political promise to the actual technical blueprint that supports a system of this magnitude.
Right, how does it actually work?
Exactly. This isn't just a simple application running on a laptop. This is a national learning operating system. It has to function flawlessly across this massive spectrum of infrastructure, from high-speed fiber in the capital to, basic mobile connectivity in the mountains.
The architecture has to be incredibly robust and flexible. And Grok is designed as a real-time adaptive tutor. The key word there is real-time.
It's not just executing a static lesson plan.
Not at all. It is continuously recalibrating instruction based on live feedback it's getting from the student moment to moment.
How fast is that feedback loop, and what are the specific inputs that are driving this dynamic adjustment?
So the system continuously monitors 4 primary factors to guide the instruction. First is the student's learning pace. Are they pausing a lot? Are they skipping ahead? Or are they just rushing through?
Okay.
Second is their current skill mastery and any identified knowledge gaps. So what concepts do they just fail to connect in the last exercise? Third is their preferred explanation styles. Do they respond better to visual diagrams or narrative stories or hard mathematical proofs?
And the fourth.
And finally, their engagement signals. Are they actively interacting with the material, or are they showing signs of frustration or boredom?
So it's not just a pass-fail system, it's actually analyzing how the student is learning.
Precisely. You should think of it less like a traditional teacher and more like a GPS application that's constantly sensing the road
Oh,
conditions.
that's a great analogy.
Yeah, if the current instructional route is leading to, like, a cognitive traffic jam, Grok instantly reroutes. It finds a new analogy, a different historical context, or a simplified example to get the point across.
All while making sure that the pedagogical consistency is maintained within El Salvador's national curriculum standards.
That alignment is absolutely non-negotiable for a national adoption like this.
One of Grok's defining strengths, according to the sources, is its conversational interface. It's moving the core learning experience from a lecture or broadcast model to a genuine dialogue. Why is that conversational quality so transformative for learning?
Because traditional education is fundamentally passive, it relies on students to just absorb information that's being transmitted from a stage or from a page.
The sage on the stage.
Right. Dialogue, especially when it's powered by these large language models, makes learning active. Students can ask unscripted, complex questions. Why did this historical figure do that? Or how does this mathematical concept apply to building a house? And Grok responds contextually.
So the core shift here is about teaching critical thinking. Grok doesn't just give you the answer. It forces you to understand the underlying logic.
That's the goal. It's shifting the emphasis away from rote memorization and toward deep conceptual understanding. And the sources also highlight the importance of interaction modes beyond just the standard instructional setting.
You mean the playful or advanced modes?
Yeah.
How do those contribute to engagement?
These modes are specifically designed to reduce cognitive load and increase curiosity. A student might toggle into a mode where Grok acts like a historical figure they are studying.
So they could have a conversation with, say, Albert Einstein.
Or a version of him, yeah. Or Grok might adopt a playful, challenging tone to maintain engagement during a long study session. It allows the system to be versatile, moving from a strict instructor to a supportive mentor to a curious peer.
It prevents the feeling that the student's just interacting with a stiff, automated system.
Exactly. And this infinitely patient tutor is also supercharged by real-time capabilities. Unlike a textbook, Grok isn't limited by last year's print date.
That real-time search and information retrieval is a massive upgrade.
It is. Grok can access and contextualize lessons with current events, up-to-date scientific findings, or recent geopolitical shifts. A lesson on global climate patterns, for example, can include data from this month, not from last decade.
It turns the classroom into a living window on the world, transforming a static learning system into an open, dynamic one.
It really does.
Okay, let's get into the deployment challenge. Scaling intelligence across really uneven infrastructure. How is this system designed to collapse the urban-rural divide from a technological standpoint?
This is, I think, a brilliant technical decision based on modern cloud architecture. Access for the student is just via their device, whether it's a high-end tablet or a lower-end smartphone.
Okay.
However, the heavy computation, the actual running of the frontier AI model, is abstracted entirely to xAI's centralized cloud infrastructure.
So the intelligence lives off-site. The student's device only needs to handle the input and the output.
Precisely. This ensures centralized model updates and consistent high-quality performance across the board. The computational burden isn't placed on the student's local hardware.
So as long as a student has basic, reliable connectivity, whether they're in the capital or the most remote village, they get the same instantaneous, high-fidelity AI tutoring experience.
That's the idea. The cloud becomes the great equalizer. It completely neutralizes the hardware gap.
Now, we have to revisit the data side, the feedback loop. This deployment creates this vast, continuous stream of performance data. What makes this data so strategically valuable for El Salvador?
The continuous feedback loop from millions of daily classroom interactions, what the students are learning, where they are failing, what concepts are consistently difficult, it provides the nation with an unparalleled diagnostic capability.
This isn't just grading homework. This is mapping the collective cognitive landscape of the country's future workforce.
It's a real-time MRI-level scan of the country's national intelligence. That is the most apt analogy.
And for xAI, this data does what? It refines Grok's models, it makes the technology smarter.
Exactly. But for El Salvador, it becomes actionable policy intelligence. It can reveal, for example, that the national curriculum standards for geometry are consistently misunderstood by rural students in the eastern part of the country.
Which allows policymakers to adjust funding or teacher training or curriculum localization efforts with a level of precision that was just never possible before.
It makes El Salvador a living laboratory for AI-assisted learning, a national testbed for global methodology.
But this sophisticated system requires sophisticated human interaction. We have to talk about the teacher training pipelines.
The program explicitly treats human adoption as a non-trivial technical dependency. It's part of the system architecture itself.
So teachers are no longer just instructors.
They become system integrators, data interpreters, and strategic guides. They have to be rigorously trained in interpreting these AI-generated insights and coordinating their physical instruction with Grok's virtual guidance and teaching students the responsible, ethical use of these powerful AI tools.
That sounds like a fundamental shift in their professional identity. It's moving from content delivery to data-informed mentorship.
It is. They are being trained not just on how to use the software, but on methodological frameworks for deployment, localization, and safety. This involves constant professional development. They are essentially co-authoring the rulebook for responsible AI implementation in a high-stakes public system.
What's fascinating here is the program isn't just importing technology. They are building the car and the road at the same time, defining the rules of the road for others to follow. And that rule book has global implications.
Absolutely. El Salvador is creating the first reference case for AI-first public education, especially for the Global South. It's demonstrating that a small nation can deploy frontier technology with political unity and technical speed.
And the technical architecture is specifically designed to overcome those geographic barriers, making this a true experiment in scalable equity.
It really is.
So, while El Salvador is pioneering this unified, deeply integrated approach, how does the rest of the world respond? We've seen unified speed. Now let's see how other national instincts start to play out.
Yeah, the contrast is stark.
As we transition from the El Salvador model, this one, unified AI tutor, we see these profound differences in approach globally. The source material highlights that nations are really diverging along three distinct axes. There's AI literacy, which is just teaching awareness.
Right.
There's AI augmentation, which is giving tools to teachers. And then there are true AI native systems, which is the systemic change El Salvador is attempting.
Let's frame this comparison really clearly for the listener. We are comparing three fundamental philosophies here. The unifier, which is El Salvador, the tool maker, which is Estonia, and the strategist, which is China.
And this divergence, it really shows national priorities and political cultures in sharp relief, doesn't it?
It does. While El Salvador made this massive bet on deep, unified integration, other countries are approaching AI integration based on their own history of digital adoption, their existing infrastructure, and their long-term economic goals.
Let's start with Estonia. They are the quintessential digital state, famous for their e-residency and digitized governance. Their approach, AI Leap 2025, is a successor to the famous Tiger Leap initiative that digitized the whole nation back in the 90s.
Right. And Estonia acts as the toolmaker. Their philosophy is multi-provider, open, and tool-centric.
So they view AI not as a monolithic system, but as a flexible toolbox.
Exactly. Their initiative, which they launched rapidly in March of 2025 with a full rollout in September, started with the higher grades 10 to 11, which is about 20,000 students.
So they're prioritizing flexibility over deep integration. They're allowing platforms like ChatGPT, Edu, and Anthropic's models to be used, rather than relying on one specific provider like El Salvador is with Grok.
Correct. For them, AI is treated as a civic skill. It's essential for modern life, much like digital literacy or knowing how to use a spreadsheet. They actively discourage prohibitive policies like phone bans.
Right.
Instead, they teach students and teachers how to use these platforms responsibly for personalization, for lesson planning, for immediate feedback. The core idea is fast iteration and pluralism. It's a federated AI classroom.
That contrasts so sharply with El Salvador.
Yeah.
El Salvador is betting on deep, unified integration with one model to guarantee equity and control.
While Estonia focuses on pluralism, speed, and allowing the best available commercial tools to enter the classroom immediately.
It's the difference between a national mandate and a national endorsement.
That's a great way to put it. Estonia, being so nimble, prioritizes equipping its highly capable teaching force with the latest commercial tools and then trusting them to figure out the best pedagogical use cases on their own. They're leveraging existing commercial innovation rather than commissioning a bespoke national system.
Okay, now let's move to the opposite end of the scale in philosophy. China. Their approach, the National AI Education Curriculum, is mandatory, curriculum-driven, and highly strategic. China is definitely the strategist.
China's scale is just unmatched, and its intent is all about technological sovereignty. This became mandatory nationwide on September 1st, 2025. It covers all primary and secondary schools. That's over 200,000 schools and tens of millions of students, starting as early as age 6.
And this is part of a deliberate national plan.
A very deliberate one. The goal is to embed AI into textbooks by 2035 and across the entire educational system by 2030. This is long-term strategic planning.
This is education as industrial strategy. They view AI competency as critical infrastructure for national power. What does their highly structured, tiered curriculum look like on the ground?
It's phased and it's compulsory. Primary school focuses on the foundational concepts, ethics, and just general AI awareness.
Okay, the basics.
Then middle school moves into basic applications, data literacy, and system interaction. And then high school gets very focused on applied skills, programming, advanced data analysis, and systems thinking.
And importantly, the use of AI in their own work is not just permitted, it's expected.
Expected, because it mirrors professional engineering practice. They want students to use these tools for drafting, for problem solving, and for research from an early age.
But the philosophical difference is just profound. China teaches AI as a core subject to systematically build a future generation of engineers who are capable of technological self-reliance.
While El Salvador uses AI as a tutor to universally raise the baseline cognitive capacity of every single student.
That distinction is so key. China is focused on national strategic output. El Salvador is focused on universal educational acceleration.
Both are massive national mobilizations, but with entirely different long-term objectives. One is about leading technology creation. The other is about democratizing access to intelligent, personalized instruction.
Finally, let's turn to Singapore. They're often called the precision state. Their AI in education program, which is embedded in their EdTech Master Plan 2030, seems to occupy a middle ground. It's focused on balance and human augmentation.
Singapore is the precision engineer. They manage about 360,000 students and 33,000 teachers. Their real strength is system coherence, and that's achieved through their single national platform, the Student Learning Space, or SLS.
So AI adoption there is not a free-for-all. It's highly regulated and very carefully calibrated.
Exactly. AI acts as a quietly amplifying cognitive partner, and it's embedded systematically across the entire K-12 journey. They use adaptive learning systems, ALS, that adjust content based on mastery.
And they target specific challenging areas, right?
They do. They're targeting things like primary 5 to secondary 2 math, which are known difficult transition points. They also provide authoring co-pilots to help teachers generate national curriculum-aligned content and feedback assistance for quick assessment. AI is embedded to maximize coherence and balance.
And Singapore's defining edge, according to the sources, is its intense focus on ethics and trust, which makes it a model for how to scale AI responsibly in an educational setting.
They operationalize ethics very deeply. They have a formal Ministry of Education AI and Education ethics framework that dictates every deployment. It requires mandatory human-in-the-loop validation for critical decisions.
So a human has to sign off.
Always.
Yeah.
And they align their tools with their national verification standards, like AI Verify. So if El Salvador optimized for speed and China optimized for scale, Singapore optimizes for trust and control. They are surgical in managing the risks of bias, hallucination, and over-reliance.
So we've established these three core archetypes: the speed and unification of El Salvador, the scale and strategy of China, and the balance and precision of Singapore. But the sources also mention other sort of rapid-fire global initiatives that demonstrate the sheer velocity of this shift.
Yeah, the global momentum is just overwhelming. I mean, take Jordan's Siraj program. It was launched incredibly quickly in October 2025 to reach 1.6 million students and teachers.
And that demonstrates what? Velocity in the Arabic-speaking world.
Exactly. It's focused on modular Arabic-first AI support. It's a fast, responsive model for personalized tutoring in a non-Western context.
And what about a more teacher-first approach?
That's what we're seeing in Iceland's pilot with Anthropic's Claude in November 2025. They started by treating AI as a professional exoskeleton for educators.
An exoskeleton. I like that.
Yeah, the focus was on empowering teachers to create better lessons and assessments before they even thought about rolling the tool out directly to students. It's a very low-stakes, high-trust model.
And there's Finland's approach.
Finland's Elements of AI course. It acts as a massive, high-quality civic education program. It had over 1.8 million enrollments by late 2025. It's designed to demystify AI for the entire population, adults and students alike, and it focuses on AI literacy without requiring any coding prerequisites.
So in less than a year, we've witnessed AI move from this niche academic concern to a foundational strategy across wildly different national contexts. The key takeaway seems to be that AI is no longer optional. It's core cognitive infrastructure globally.
The pattern is absolutely clear. The decision now is not whether to adopt AI, but which governing philosophy to choose. Are you the unifier like El Salvador, the toolmaker like Estonia, the strategist like China, or the precision engineer like Singapore? Each nation is testing a different hypothesis about the future of learning, and all of them are moving incredibly fast.
But what happens when you introduce the messy reality of federalism, massive market influence, and competing state interests? Now we have to turn to the American ecosystem.
The patchwork quilt.
Exactly. If the previous nations offered models built on unity and centralized coherence, the United States offers the classic patchwork, a decentralized, market-driven innovation ecosystem. Yet, 2025 was cited as the inflection point when AI education became an unavoidable national priority. Why the sudden shift?
The convergence of pressures just became too intense to ignore. First, there was the huge global competition factor, especially China's massive strategic investment. AI talent became clearly linked to national security and future economic dominance.
So that's the external pressure.
Right. Second, the reality of generative AI-driven workforce disruption really hit home, and that demanded mass retraining and K-12 preparation. And third, and this was the most critical internally, was the intensifying equity crisis.
How so?
Policymakers finally realized that without some kind of coordinated action, AI access would just deepen the already massive educational gaps between rich and poor districts.
So the federal government had to step in, not to mandate a single system like Grok, but to establish a framework. They were, laying the rails, not driving the train.
That's the perfect metaphor. The federal response started in April 2025 with an executive order, advancing artificial intelligence education for American youth. This established the first ever federal framework for AI education across the entire lifespan, from kindergarten all the way through adult retraining.
And the core philosophy was what? Promoting early exposure and teacher training without prescribing a uniform national curriculum.
Exactly. But how do you enforce guardrails and consistency across a decentralized system without dictating the content? That was the challenge.
And the Department of Education took the lead on those guardrails in November 2025.
They did. They emphasized privacy, ethics, transparency, and accountability. And instead of mandates, they leveraged their budget through 7 discretionary grant priorities.
So they used money as the incentive.
They did. These priorities basically signaled to states and districts, if you want federal money, you need to focus on high-impact tutoring, using AI, on career pathway exploration, and on ensuring students understand the ethical implications of this technology. They were incentivizing responsible innovation.
So the federal role is vision and safety, while allowing that localized creativity to flourish.
Precisely. And while the White House provides the vision, the actual execution, and the empirical testing, that falls to the National Science Foundation, the NSF.
How does the NSF function as the execution engine or the wind tunnel for pedagogy in this American model?
The NSF's approach is entirely evidence-based. In 2025, they provided supplemental funding up to $300,000 per awardee, specifically for K-12 scaling projects, teacher professional development, and integrating AI into STEM.
So their mandate is to measure and evaluate which pedagogical approaches actually generate results.
Right. Ensuring AI in a guidance is robust and not just a fad. They're essentially running thousands of decentralized experiments to see what works best in different environments.
Meanwhile, Congress viewed this as industrial strategy.
Yeah.
We saw the introduction of the AI Education Act of 2025.
Yes. Introduced in September 2025, this act frames AI education not as a social service, but as a direct investment in the future American workforce. The goal is crystal clear: funding scholarships, establishing regional AI research centers, and strengthening pipelines to ensure the U.S. maintains global leadership in AI development.
The genius and also the headache of the U.S. system is that the 50 states act as these policy sandboxes, What kind of decentralized experimentation were we seeing on the ground by late 2025?
We were seeing massive state-level activity. The sources highlight that by late 2025, 28 states had adopted K-12 AI guidance, and 20 states had introduced legislation. And this diversity is the system working as designed.
And we saw targeted investments.
We did. Iowa committed $3 million to deploy AI reading tutors to elementary students, focusing on closing early literacy gaps. Kentucky implemented sophisticated AI-based early warning systems to proactively flag students who are at risk of dropping out or failing courses.
So you have this massive fragmented system where every state is optimizing for its own local needs, rather than a one-size-fits-all approach. But the biggest structural difference from the El Salvador model has to be the reliance on the private sector.
Absolutely. The American model is defined by public-private partnership. The White House announced commitments from over 300 organizations in September 2025. This dramatically accelerates deployment, but it also introduces significant challenges regarding commercial influence.
And what's the scale of those private sector commitments? They sound enormous.
They are. NVIDIA pledged $25 million to adapt its Deep Learning Institute content for K-12, and they're aiming to reach 1 million students. Microsoft offered free AI tools and certifications. Anthropic committed $1 million for education focusing on AI ethics and cybersecurity.
And even professional services firms.
Yeah, firms like Deloitte committed to supporting 3 million people, including teachers and students, with AI readiness.
This dramatically expands reach almost instantly. But it raises that uncomfortable question of vendor influence, long-term data monetization, and neutrality in a decentralized system. Are we trading educational impartiality for scale?
That is the unavoidable trade-off. When the government lays the rails but commercial entities are driving the trains, vendor influence, the ability of tech giants to shape pedagogy and curriculum, becomes a primary concern.
But the counterpoint is that this massive market investment drove AI tools into roughly 35% of U.S. K-12 schools by late 2025.
It did, and often with the buy-in of teachers' unions, which lends a certain degree of legitimacy to the whole enterprise.
This raises an important question then. Is the American strength, its decentralized diversity and innovation, is that also its structural weakness? Does it lead to uneven coordination and potentially exacerbate educational inequality between districts that can afford these top-tier vendor partnerships and those that can't?
That is the central tension of the entire American model. The U.S. is building an AI education ecosystem, which means rapid innovation is guaranteed, but equity and universal access are not.
So while El Salvador bought a unified, high-quality solution for everyone,
The U.S. relies on thousands of local choices, which means the quality of AI education you receive depends heavily on your local school board's budget and their technical expertise. The U.S. is operating at full scale, but it is messy, it is loud, and it is constantly fighting against the gravitational pull of inequality.
that's a fascinating contrast. We covered the national strategies. Now let's zoom in and focus on the daily life of the most critical resource in the entire system, the human teacher.
Right. What does this actually feel like in the classroom?
The global conversation about AI in education usually boils down to fear, the fear of replacement. We need to shift that focus entirely, away from replacement and towards augmentation, exploring what the sources describe as the reality of AI-enhanced teaching.
And the sources are really unequivocal on this. AI is an amplifier, not a substitute. It's expanding the capacity of what a single teacher can accomplish in a day.
The reality on the ground is that AI is freeing educators from the crushing weight of repetitive labor.
And allowing them to focus on the irreplaceably human, work-inspiring curiosity, building emotional resilience, and providing that critical ethical mentorship.
So the classroom is transforming into an adaptive ecosystem where lessons dynamically adjust their pace and depth. How does this look moment to moment for a student in that class?
Well, the teacher is no longer the sole source of information. They've become the orchestrator of learning. So students in, say, a geometry class are using intelligent tutoring systems that provide instant personalized feedback on proofs and problem.
And the teacher, who is now freed from grading 30 nearly identical worksheets,
Is moving around the room using AI-generated data on student bottlenecks to guide strategic interventions. They can focus on the 5 students who share a specific, complex misconception instead of giving a generic lesson to the whole class.
So AI acts as the high bandwidth assistant. Let's put some numbers on this. How much of a teacher's workload can realistically be offloaded to AI?
The data is staggering. The studies that were conducted throughout 2025 suggest AI can reduce a teacher's administrative and clerical workload by up to 45%.
45%.
I mean, this is a direct, systemic response to the global crisis of teacher burnout. By shifting teachers away from grading, data entry, communication logs, and routine assessment and toward high-impact pedagogical work, you fundamentally change the job description for the better.
A 45% reduction in administrative work is massive. That time is immediately repurposed for higher value activities. So how specifically does AI streamline the most painful part of teaching, lesson planning, and content creation?
It accelerates content prototyping dramatically. A teacher can input the state standard for the week and instantly receive standards-aligned lesson plans, differentiated worksheets for struggling and advanced students, graphic organizers.
And even multimodal explanations.
Exactly. They can say, generate a video script explaining the water cycle using a local context, for example. This moves lesson planning from hours to minutes, allowing teachers to spend their time refining and personalizing content rather than just generating it from scratch.
And what about the data analysis side? Teachers are usually drowning in performance metrics. How does AI translate that overwhelming volume of raw data into actionable pedagogical insight?
AI processes every single interaction, and it surfaces these deep patterns that human teachers, just due to time constraints, often miss. It can identify common misconceptions across the entire class, it can flag students showing early signs of disengagement, and it can highlight cognitive bottlenecks,
And these AI-generated insights are presented in easy-to-read dashboards.
which allows the teacher to adjust their instruction proactively, sometimes even in the middle of a lesson, instead of waiting until the end of unit test confirms that a bunch of students have fallen behind.
The source also highlighted specific tools, like TeachFX, that focus on the teacher's own professional growth.
That's the reflective practice loop. Tools like TeachFX can analyze classroom audio listening to the dynamic between the teacher and the students to give objective, non-judgmental feedback on instructional habits.
So it might tell a teacher, you did 80% of the talking today.
Or your open-ended questions only reached 3 specific students. This helps the teacher refine their craft, moving from these episodic PD workshops to continuous, data-driven self-improvement.
This all loops back to personalization.
Yeah.
AI handles the explanations, the practice, the immediate feedback, and it changes the geometry of the classroom. But does AI truly scale that one-on-one attention effectively?
It does. A 2025 Harvard study emphasized that students learn faster because the self-paced, immediate feedback loop is just so efficient. This frees the instructor from being a content delivery machine, allowing them to focus entirely on motivation, guiding deeper discussions, and providing the mentorship that only a human can offer.
So AI effectively multiplies a teacher's presence. It makes a 1:30 ratio feel closer to 1:10 for the human elements of the job.
That's a great way of thinking about it.
But if the technology is evolving so rapidly, how do we prevent teachers from entering this constant exhausting cycle of retraining? How is professional development adapting?
PD is moving from those traditional episodic workshops to continuous, adaptive, and personalized learning. Teachers are now using AI-driven platforms to rehearse lessons, to test new instructional strategies via realistic simulations like pilots using flight simulators,
Right.
and receive feedback on their specific instructional weak points. The expectation is no longer that teachers must catch up to technology. Rather, their professional growth evolves alongside it. It makes PD responsive to the teacher's immediate needs, leading to self-directed, continuous skill refinement.
We also have to discuss AI's quiet superpower in the classroom, what the sources call explanatory diversity.
Explanatory diversity is the ability of the AI to generate multiple analogies, simplified explanations, cultural references, or visual descriptions for a single complex concept. It directly addresses the fact that no 2 students learn in exactly the same way. So if a concept like the Pythagorean theorem doesn't click when you explain it mathematically, the teacher can instantly deploy an AI-generated explanation contextualized through, say, construction or musical theory.
Precisely. The AI acts as a creative co-teacher. It allows the human educator to differentiate instruction dramatically without having to reinvent 5 different versions of the same lesson plan.
And this is massive for inclusion, especially for multilingual or neurodivergent learners.
Huge. It ensures that the curriculum speaks the student's language, metaphorically and literally, which increases engagement and reduces that feeling of exclusion for students who previously struggled simply because the standard explanation didn't resonate with their cognitive style.
This means the human teacher's job becomes fundamentally more human, more strategic, and more impactful. The fear of replacement is misplaced. The reality is an elevation of the entire profession.
It really is a paradigm shift. We've centered so heavily on K-12 and national school systems, particularly El Salvador's bold move. But if AI is the engine for the next generation, what about the billions of adults globally who, for decades, have been excluded from the traditional education model?
And this is where AI moves beyond just educational reform and into its full humanitarian potential. The sources highlight that AI is systematically dismantling one of the oldest structural barriers in human history, the prerequisite of literacy.
That's a profound statement. Since the invention of the printing press, the assumption has always been that you must be able to read and write in order to learn.
And that assumption excludes 773 million adults worldwide, according to the latest UNESCO estimates. It's a staggering number.
So how does AI break that equation?
Through rapid global advancements in natural language processing, or NLP, speech-to-text, and text-to-speech technologies. For the first time in history, adults can learn by simply speaking and listening.
So they can interact verbally with an intelligent system.
They can. They can ask complex questions about job skills or financial literacy or basic health care and receive contextually relevant verbal instructions in return.
So AI is restoring education to its original form, oral transmission, but now it is supercharged with instant access to the entire repository of global knowledge and delivered with infinite patience.
Exactly. This conversational, voice-first learning bypasses the need for formal enrollment, for textbooks, or even for basic literacy, and this power is amplified exponentially by multilingual intelligence.
How far along are these frontier models in removing the language barrier, especially for low-resource or indigenous languages that traditional tech is often ignored?
The modern frontier models are rapidly moving towards supporting hundreds of languages. And crucially, they're being refined to translate concepts and cultural context, not just raw words. This means the instruction actually adapts the metaphors, the tone, and the references to the local environment.
So an adult learning basic mechanics in a village in Peru might receive instructions that reference local tools and community practices delivered entirely in Quechua.
Precisely. They learn in their mother tongue, receiving culturally relevant explanations. And this is just immensely transformative for migrant and refugee populations, for indigenous communities, and for women who are historically excluded from formal schooling due to cultural or geographical barriers.
It decentralizes knowledge delivery, taking it out of the hands of traditional gatekeepers and institutions.
It does. It could unlock economic mobility for hundreds of millions of people who were previously invisible to the global education system.
What's the projected impact on adult participation rates?
The research suggests that AI-driven personalization and accessibility could increase adult learning participation by 30 to 50% in developing regions over the next decade.
Wow.
Learning becomes ambient, it's embedded into daily life without the need for enrollment fees or commuting time or rigid schedules. It makes learning a seamless, available utility like water or electricity.
In this new model of adult learning, what is the critical role that's left for the human educator?
Just as in K-12, the role shifts to relational and emotional support. AI handles the content, the translation, and the repetition. Human educators focus on the crucial factors for adult learners: motivation, trust building, community support, and applying the knowledge in real-world contexts.
The World Economic Forum emphasizes that this hybrid model is essential.
It is. It's to ensure that education scales without becoming cold or dehumanizing. The human mentor becomes the bridge between the knowledge provided by the AI and the application of that knowledge in the learner-specific context. They address the emotional barriers to learning that adults often face: fear of failure, shame, or lack of confidence.
This brings us to a really strategic question posed by the sources. If this capability is ready now, should XAI primarily pursue massive government contracts like the one in El Salvador, or should it follow the Google precedent and go directly to the student globally?
The argument for going direct is extremely powerful. It's centered on two things: velocity and equity. Speed beats bureaucracy. Negotiating and deploying systems across thousands of different national school systems is glacially slow. A direct-to-consumer model moves at internet speed, allowing for instant global deployment.
So the goal is equity without intermediaries, kind of like what Khan Academy or Duolingo achieved, but with a far more advanced conversational tutoring engine.
Yes, a free or highly affordable Grok tier, available globally, instantly reaches the most underserved learners: the student in rural Brazil, the factory worker retraining in Malaysia, the refugee learning a new language. It removes the bureaucratic gatekeepers and ensures access without waiting for national policy alignment or lengthy procurement cycles.
And the direct model also turbocharges innovation by generating far more diverse, immediate user feedback than any single national pilot could.
Absolutely. When millions of users are interacting across diverse cultures and languages on a daily basis, the machine learning feedback loop is exponentially faster. Government deployments risk rigidity because updating the content requires bureaucratic approval. The direct model allows Grok to evolve organically and continuously, improving its cultural and linguistic relevance far faster.
If the goal is truly global democratization of intelligence, what is the strategic language target that XAI must hit?
The source material suggests that supporting the 100 most spoken languages would cover over 90% of the world's population.
So that includes major groups like Mandarin, Spanish, Hindi, Arabic, Bengali, Swahili.
All of them. The strategy starts with text-based conversational tutoring and then iteratively expands quality and moves to voice interfaces as compute power allows.
Grok's core strength is conversation. That's what gives it a unique edge in this direct model.
It's infinite patience. That is the core advantage. No human teacher, no matter how dedicated, can provide 24/7 step-by-step Socratic questioning and explanation without getting tired or frustrated. Grok provides that level of personalized interaction without demanding anything more than a connected device and the student's own curiosity.
But let's address the critical challenges of a direct, borderless model, especially data privacy for minors and the risk of misinformation or hallucinations.
Those risks are magnified in a direct-to-consumer model because the oversight is so fragmented. For misinformation or hallucinations, you need mitigation through transparent uncertainty signaling. The AI must clearly state when it's uncertain or when the user should verify the information with a human.
And for data privacy?
For data privacy, the sources suggest that centralized self-regulation by XAI, using consistent, rigorous privacy standards worldwide, might actually be more effective than attempting to comply with hundreds of disparate national regulations.
So the challenge isn't whether it can work, but how to ensure responsible deployment at an impossible speed.
Exactly. El Salvador proved what is possible with a government mandate. The rest of the world is now asking what is possible without one. The ultimate vision is a patient, intelligent tutor available to every human being anytime in their own language, making learning truly personal and borderless.
In this rapidly accelerating landscape, competition is unavoidable. We have the established nonprofit titan, Khan Academy, which is built on trust and pedagogical excellence. And now it's facing this frontier AI model, Grok, backed by XAI and the momentum of a national-scale deployment. Is Grok truly poised to eclipse Khan Academy in the short or medium term?
The consensus among the sources is actually quite nuanced. A Grok is not an immediate Khan Academy killer, but it is an existential catalyst. The December 11th announcement in El Salvador elevated Grok from a theoretical competitor to a policy-applied educational powerhouse. It forced a competitive reassessment across the board.
Let's look specifically at Grok's strengths and its stated ambitions beyond just El Salvador.
Grok's primary strength is its conversational personalization. It excels at dynamic interaction, adjusting its tone and explanation in real time, functioning as a truly adaptive patient tutor.
And the investment behind this is staggering.
It is. XAI hired thousands of human tutors in 2025 specifically to fine-tune Grok's educational reasoning. This demonstrates an unparalleled commitment to scaling highly sophisticated Socratic instruction to billions of users.
And its multilingual potential is a massive market differentiator, isn't it?
Absolutely. The early performance metrics show Grok adapting effectively across diverse linguistic inputs. It could potentially surpass existing educational platforms in its ability to offer high-quality, localized, one-on-one conversational tutoring in a user's preferred language. The El Salvador rollout just confirms that it can move from a lab concept to a real-world, high-stakes policy application.
Okay, now let's pivot to Khan Academy. They have massive institutional trust and a huge library. What constitutes their enduring moat against such an advanced frontier AI?
Trust and pedagogical depth. Khan Academy was founded back in 2008. It's a nonprofit institution that is synonymous with free, quality education. Their multimedia library is immense. Thousands of meticulously structured, human-curated videos, especially in foundational subjects like math and science. That content is still unmatched in its clarity and pedagogical precision.
And their own entry into AI, Conmigo, launched early in 2023. How does that AI platform compare conceptually to Grok?
Conmigo operates under fundamentally different constraints. It is tightly governed by ethical guardrails, child safety rules, and deep curriculum alignment, and that makes it highly attractive to regulators, parents, and established school systems.
So while it offers personalized guidance and Socratic questioning,
Its cautious, ethics-first approach prioritizes safety and predictability over Grok's historical emphasis on open-ended frontier exploration. Conmigo is designed to be a responsible, tightly focused guide. Grok is designed to be a universe of knowledge.
so near-term coexistence is the most likely scenario. Grok for conversational depth and adaptability, Khan Academy for structured paths, and that proven, trusted multimedia content.
That's the consensus. Many learners will probably use them complementarily. They might ask Grok to summarize a complex historical concept and simplify the analogy, and then turn to Khan Academy for the structured video, the practice problems, and the assessment required to formally master the material.
The future is very likely complementarity rather than extinction. Education needs an upgrade, not a knockout.
I think that's exactly right.
But the competitive balance could shift. What are the key disruptive conditions that Grok would need to meet to truly challenge Khan Academy's dominance?
Two things would have to happen. First, Grok would need to achieve mass-scale, reliable, AI-generated educational video content that rivals Khan's library in accuracy and pedagogical quality. Generating trusted, high-fidelity video is still computationally intensive, and it requires rigorous quality control.
And the second thing,
Second, Grok must implement and transparently manage safety and curriculum controls for younger learners that meet or exceed the cautious standards set by Conmigo. They need to gain the institutional trust that their for-profit model currently lacks.
the underlying philosophical divergence is perhaps the most enduring point of friction here.
It really is. Grok is for-profit. It prioritizes rapid scaling and compute power. Khan Academy is a nonprofit, prioritizing universal accessibility, ad-free learning, and transparency. In education, the long-term advantage of institutional trust and ethical constraint is significant, and that's something that raw computational capability cannot easily displace.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this tension is incredibly beneficial. The real winners here are the learners, who now have an unprecedented choice in high-quality personalized instruction.
Exactly. The existence of platforms like Grok forces Khan Academy to accelerate its own development, which ensures that the entire ecosystem gets better faster.
This competition is driving the greatest acceleration in educational potential that we have seen in decades. The technology is forcing us to rethink pedagogy, curriculum, and most importantly, the logistics of equitable access to knowledge worldwide.
It's a fascinating moment.
We've covered an immense transformation today. It's marked by both the lightning speed and the sheer scale of mobilization witnessed in 2025, from El Salvador's deep integration gamble to the diverse, market-driven experimentation across the U.S. ecosystem.
The movement is unequivocal. AI is rapidly becoming educational infrastructure. The choice for nations is no longer whether to adopt AI, but which governing philosophy defines their approach. Whether to move fast and unify, like El Salvador, move big and strategically, like China, or move carefully and with precision, like Singapore.
Our deep dive consistently shows that the fear of AI replacing human connection is being countered by the reality of amplifying human potential. By automating repetition and scaling infinite patience, AI fundamentally redefines the teacher's role, allowing them to focus entirely on human mentorship and emotional support.
And critically, this revolution extends far beyond formal schooling. The ability of AI to teach through voice and conversation in hundreds of languages dismantles the age-old barrier of literacy, offering dignity and economic opportunity to the billions of adults who were previously excluded from the global knowledge economy.
This marks a monumental shift where intelligence itself, once a scarce, expensive resource, is moving toward becoming an abundant, personalized public utility delivered to anyone with a connected device.
The source material suggests the future classroom may not be a fixed building, but a perpetual conversation available anytime, in any language, customized to any learner. If intelligence truly becomes an abundant public utility democratizing education on this scale, what public good beyond education is next to be fundamentally democratized and transformed by AI access? Will it be healthcare, governance, or perhaps basic scientific research? That's the question this deep dive leaves us with.